Khan Academy, you will do practice problems. What determines your success here is practicing all the time over the summer. Take practice exams, learn how to sit down for hours at a time and take an exam. And I assure you, you will do much better than you did in your original ones. Speak a bit about the roadmap, and I'll go a little bit quicker here. During your summer, use your summers very well. Don't just relax and watch Netflix the entire time. Use your summers in a way that demonstrates what values you have and kind of who you are as a person. Those summer activities will be integral to your application about what you write about and the activities that you highlight. This is a wonderful opportunity for you to show your Georgian heritage. Do you volunteer at a Georgian organization, or maybe do you advocate for a certain issue that is pertinent in Georgia, or do you go back to Georgia in the summers and maybe you volunteer as an English teacher, or maybe you help out your grandmother. And that's also important because jobs inside the household are as important as jobs outside the household. But think about what matters to you and make sure you think about it early, because this is kind of what completes your application, what again packages you and creates your hook. So think about what you want that hook to be and then how those experiences can build towards them. And there's a plug here. If you are someone that's applying to maybe a theater school, or you want to become a musician, or you want to study architecture, you want to be an athlete, these are kind of different paths that you take, and the application looks a little bit different here. So I can't really speak to those, but I'll tell you, speak to your college counselors and let's say maybe your coaches if you are an athlete about what the process looks like there, because those are a bit more unique. These are some roadmaps. If you are a junior on this call, hopefully you can think about this a bit more, or sophomore or ninth grader going into these years. During the summer, think about your extracurricular involvements, think about studying for your standardized tests and figuring out if you want to take SAT or ACT. In the winter, start taking those standardized test scores. You can take multiple standardized tests, and what they will do is they will super score your test, which means, let's say for the SAT has the writing and the reading and the math section, and you can take the test multiple times. And what they will do is they will take the highest score from your math section and highest score from your English section. Your math section might have been highest in the winter, and your reading section might have been highest in the summer, and they will take those highest scores. So the more times you take that exam, the better chance you will have of having a higher super scored test score, but that also means you have to study. So make sure you put in that time to do well. My advice again would be take the test maybe 2 to 3 times. I think I took it 4 times. So everyone's a little different and a little crazier, but take it as many times as you want, but also make sure you're doing well, because some schools see all of your tests and how many times you took it. Junior year spring is when you ask for recommendations from your teachers. So again, think about who you want that to be. Think a bit early. Also, for the juniors on this call or the rising 10th graders, whoever you are, think about early creating kind of nurturing teacher relationships, because these people are going to be the ones that advocate for you to get into college. So make sure you impress them and that you're doing that throughout the year as well. During your senior year, going into senior year, their summer, again, make good use of your extracurricular activities. Draft your essays. College application essays are not easy to write. They're a completely different style of writing that you've ever been exposed to, and they're hard. They're hard to self-reflect what values you have, create stories, make it catchy. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of hours that I spent editing my essays over and over and over again. Start in the summer. Even if you have like horrible first drafts, at least start getting your brain kind of practicing that type of writing. In the winter, you refine your college list. You decide which ones you want to apply to, and you start applying to those early action and early decision applications. In the spring is when you also have, in the beginning of the spring, you or kind of January's, you have your regular decision, and then at spring, kind of later on the year, you start receiving application decisions back. make sure your grades don't fall just because it's senior year and maybe you're already in college doesn't necessarily mean you can now just throw your legs up and stop studying, because colleges still track your grades and they reserve the right to rescind your application. If maybe you went from being a straight A student to now getting C's, they might take their acceptance away. So make sure you don't slack off. And that also will not reflect well on you in terms of building strong study habits for college going into the fall. Again, what is your story? Think about what you're involved in now. Think about what matters to you. And also think about the quality of those involvements. If you volunteer somewhere, maybe continue volunteering there if you enjoy it. Become a leader, host events, maybe engage with the community, inspire others to join your organization. If you are in a club, find ways to become the president of the club or become the secretary or the finance person of the club. Again, host events, win awards. Don't be in 20 different clubs and just a member in 20 different clubs. Be in 2 clubs that matter to you, that make sense to who you are as an applicant, and become a leader in those. Again, what values you show and what you're involved in informs who you will be, the type of student that you will be in college. So make sure you think about that when you're writing these activities down, because that's what the application reader sees. They see, oh, this person volunteers at a hospital. That makes sense. They want to be pre-med. Versus if you kind of have obscure interests that like 10 different, completely different interests that don't make sense, that don't really align with one another, that might be a bit confusing. Although you could also have a different kind of story in saying, I'm interested in many things and I'm still exploring, but make sure your essay would also reflect what activities you write down. And here I'll just kind of give a quick background of what my story was, and maybe this helps you think about what opportunities there are. I know some of you wrote down in your sign-up sheet, like, I'm a 9th grader and I just want to know what extracurricular activities exist. So my story was, I'm an immigrant to the US. I have strong cultural ties to my heritage. My essays were about kind of my identity, the values that I have, how my cultural background motivates me to do well, strive for more, and kind of also my interests in medicine, languages, and technology. And those were all reflected in my extracurriculars. As you can see, some of my activities that I highlight. I did research, I volunteered at a hospital, I had a couple jobs in the hospital in my town, and I also was interested in technology, so I was a computer science teacher assistant, and I participated in hackathons. And then also I had kind of cultural ties to my background and my heritage, where I volunteered at the Sunday school at my church and some other things here as well. But think about kind of how the upper part of who you are is reflected in the activities that you do. My parting thoughts for you as I round out kind of this hour spent is think about scholarships as well. It might feel very far-fetched to think about kind of paying for college, and that is a bit of a stressor for a lot of families, but there are things that you can do to hopefully position yourself as a strong applicant to be able to win certain scholarships. A lot of schools have full ride scholarships, and they're broken down into kind of 3 different buckets. Some are nomination based, so let's say the Jefferson Scholars and the Moorhead Cane from UVA and UNC and many others require a nomination from your school. So earlier on, again, if you're a junior right now, reach out to your college counselors and see if your school nominates people from your school to be one of those scholars. Maybe nobody is interested in your school to apply to UVA or to apply to UNC, and maybe you can be the person that they nominate. They nominate you, then you have kind of an application you fill out, and then there are probably multiple stages because it's a full ride scholarship. It is quite rigorous. Some schools ask you to fill out a separate application or separate essay. The trustee scholarship, I think, is Boston University that does this. And then some schools, you just send in your application regularly and they're the ones that identify you. But again, here it's key that you send in your application early action, because that's where the applicant pool is. And these are just some of the scholarships that I pulled out, but do your own research. Every school is different about the scholarships they offer, who they offer it to, and how they offer it. Learn it early on so you apply a bit more aware of what the options are. Also, think about what your likelihood is of getting these scholarships. The Jefferson Scholars at UVA, super, super competitive. All of these scholarships are super, super competitive. You are probably more likely to get larger scholarships at schools that are that have, let's say, lower GPA and standardized test score averages than you might have. So you are more likely to get more money at schools that really, really want you and where you would excel. That is a consideration for you. Also, think about honors colleges. Some schools might have like their regular college, and then they might give honors distinctions to certain students, and that also requires a separate application. But learn this early on because that will save you a lot of time in your senior year. My parting thoughts for you: finish strong, continue being a strong high school student, do well in your classes, make professor relationships, teacher relationships, plan ahead, think about what your story will be, reflect about yourself, what values you have, how that manifests in the things that you do, but also that manifests in the schools that you apply to, and then focus on yourself, your own growth. A college application process is quite stressful, and I'm sure some of your parents are on the call and they have a lot of opinions. But this is your journey. This is where you're going to end up. You are going to a certain school for 4 years. This school might determine the alumni connections that you have in the future, the jobs, the opportunities that you get, the grad school opportunities that you get. Think about what you want and what matters to you and make your decision based off of that. And with that said, I want to promote the 2 other seminars that I have in May and June. This will be more focused on writing. And ideally focused on kind of rising seniors, so people between their junior and senior year, so we can kind of get together, start writing essays, and you can kind of not make the mistakes that I did, but start early and be used to talking about yourself and be used to self-reflecting. And I hope you join there. Otherwise, I will open everything up, this presentation up for questions. I hope that you found this useful. And again, I will write my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out if you ever have any questions or ever want recommendations for my application process. Again, I'm far removed from college applications, but I just applied to medical schools, which was basically the same thing, but harder. But I'm glad to talk through any kind of specific questions that you might have about your own application process.
Lisa, thank you so much for this very interesting hour, or the overview. I learned a lot. I'm sure our attendees learned a lot as well. We are, again, really looking forward to the follow-on seminars that will not necessarily be recorded. So please, everyone, spread the word so others can also sign up. It'll be much more interactive and really kind of focusing on your specific questions. So I will stop the recording now and we'll move to questions. Thank you.